This is ridiculous. All the ink spilled out of here. Still got some. Alright. Can't worry about that now. Got to finish this. I'm never keeping this on the right side again. Just for this instructional. Bunch of crap. Now, even as I'm rushing, my point is not to fill up any white space with texture. I'm working with the lines I've already established. If my goal is just to fill up any white space I see with texture, thinking that I'm adding more, what I'm doing is I'm actually flattening out the form. Which is not what you want. You want a little bit of dimension to it. You want to indicate that there is texture all around the figure by careful placing of your lines. Not flattening it by just putting lines everywhere you see unevenness. So I'm just working with the lines I've already established. I'm drawing thinner lines either from it, or I'm adding a few tick marks or hatch marks next to the lines I've already established, just to help develop the form even more. And this scroll quill pen has some flexibility to it. It doesn't have as much flexibility as the 102, but it can get some line variation. And this pen is great for doing blunt little tick marks from the black areas. Ones that are way too short to even think about feathering with a brush. Great for doing tiny little rubble and tiny rocks and pebbles and debris, and shrapnel. You'd be surprised. I mean, you think that some of these lines can be done even with just a tech pen, but you'd be surprised at how much just even a little bit of line variation that this pen allows can do for you with speed. I also find that with quill pens, the lines that the quill pens embed into the paper are much harder to erase than lines drawn with a tech pen or lines put down with a brush. It's like the lines that you put down with the quill pen really engraves it into the paper. Rendering on the veins. Texture just never ends. It's always something. And if I absolutely had to leave this very moment to go send this page off, I could afford to leave some of the texture out and really nobody would know. But I will try to squeeze in as much as I can for you guys. Some more debris. The debris never ends either. Little collarbone on the woman, nice and thin. Do a little thumbnail. And we're going to move down to the second panel now and just do some of the little rendering on the close-up. I'm wondering if some of that could be done just with a brush. I think every other line I can do with a brush in his face. So I'll move quickly to the third panel. I'm just doing the same thing as I did in the first panel of the monster. Just trying to focus on working with the lines already established. The detail in the monster is not that much smaller than what is portrayed in the first panel. It doesn't seem to be as detailed, which is nice. Like I said, the nice thing about this Quill pen is I can swipe lines really fast in succession, still get them nice and dark and dense. I couldn't do that with the Tech pen. Now I'm just doing the very fine line work, which at this point is basically tiny texture lines and tiny little hatching and cross hatching and maybe some tick marks here and there. And at this point I am just trying to see what I can leave for the final brush work, which is my small size 0 or aught brush. Let's blend this black out on the lower lip here. There we go. I think everything else in the second panel can be left for the brush. And now we move to the final panel here with the Quill pen. So I'm just going to start up here, Monster's Hand, and wrap up on the final little lines. Again, I'm just finishing up on what's already been established. I'm not just going in there and just adding lines and dots and marks in broad white space areas. Just wrapping up on the connections and just moving right down his entire body. And as I'm making these little final lines, I'm just using my peripheral vision to scope out other areas of his body just to kind of see what could use more work and what can be left alone. Right now I'm just staying on space and I'm moving down toward his body. I'm focusing just getting the monster all done. So once I'm done with the monster, I can just say to myself, I'm done, don't have to touch the monster ever again, unless I have to come in with a tiny brush, which I may, but I am pressed for time. Oversleeping and spilling ink were not good moves on my part. The ink was not my fault. Now just adding some final bumps and scales to his right arm slamming into the ground here. Just about done. The arm. Now I'm just going to move to the rubble and debris, rocks, concrete pieces, pebbles. A lot of push and pull lines for fanciness, of course. I'm still adding a lot of random dots as I go along to help with the texture of the ground. Water droplets coming out this little splash here, thickening the outlines of these just a bit to pop them out from the background. I've made them purposely round, of course, to indicate the softness of the water. I'm just about done with that. See if I need to do anything on the girl being tossed aside here. I think there's a little suggestion of a center line here coming up the back of the butt. Just a little subtle hint right there. That's enough. I think that looks good. I'm moving right down to the guy. Looks like there's some more rubble in the background, whatever. Let's see, and then just this little line connect there, complete his right hand. I think we're just about set here to move on to the final tool. Actually, I'm going to use the eraser and the big brush for the blacks, but we're just about done. I hope. Now I'm going to move on to the small detail brush, and this is for really fine feathering. I'm going to switch to my thicker bottle of ink since the thin one is just for the Quill pens, so it can flow easier. But this is a size 0 or aught. Okay, now I'm taking the tiny brush and I'm just going to finish up on any tiny little hatching and cross hatching, or mostly feathering at this point. Right here I'm going to the background details. As I said before, if there's too much ink in the brush, you won't get the fine lines that you need. So you want to make sure you run those lines out a bit before you lay down the final line. Here we go. And these are mostly going into black areas. So I'll do a little bit of feathering, but there's a point where the feathering gets just so small that you really don't need to feather into a perfect little triangle into the black. It's gonna get reduced anyway. Some more ink. Because the brush is a lot smaller, you gotta dip your brush more frequently to keep the ink flowing. And if you don't keep your brush constantly wet with ink, then it's going to dry up pretty quickly, especially with thicker ink. I'm going to move down to the arm where I left it open. I didn't know whether I wanted to use a bounce light off the bottom of his arm or just keep it all black. I think I'm going to use a little bit of bounce light. So I'm going to do a series of hatch lines that go thin, and I'm going to curve the lines a bit in succession into where this would be black. So I'm going to start thin, I'm going to thicken them up as I go along. I might even do some cross hatching just to make it look fancy. Then for added fun, I'm just going to throw some cross hatching at a diagonal to those lines, thicken them up as I go along. If you can't make those lines with the brush that consistently in that pattern, then what you can do is you can use a French curve and rule those longer lines that go across with the Tech pen. Just remember that as you get closer to the blacks, you thicken up the lines. Oh yeah, we got these little waffle gradations I have to do. Now I have to match what I have established, so I'm going to use a lot of wavering lines. Yeah, what a pain to do. Had I known I'd be up against the clock this badly, I wouldn't even show you how to do it. But I do it for the kids. I gotta cross hatch it the other way. And I believe I have one more set in the far distance here, right in here. Then I'm done with all the waffle hatching on this entire page. Just move on. So close to being done. Remember, more broken lines towards the edges, and as you get more towards the middle, more connected, thicker lines. That's how I do it anyway. Now we're done with that. There is one part on the lady that I missed, and there's this very faint hatching on the inner part of her left thigh to indicate some musculature form here. Making sure I don't have too much ink, I'm just going to make very thin lines that follow that form, that blend into the contour. Yeah, I don't want to do any more. That'll just pop it out a little too much. What else do I have? Oh, I got to touch up the underside of the monster's jaw. Damn it. Touch up on that contour. I'm going to do some tick marks from the black just to kind of blend it all in a little bit more. I'm even going to drag a few fine lines from the black all the way to the edge just to kind of make it somewhat cohesive. How does that look? It almost looks too clean. I don't want that underlight to be that strong, so I'm going to rough it up a bit more. I kind of like that better. It's a little more subtle, especially when it's up against this black down here of the background building area. And I blacken that in. Enough subtlety to pop it out, not make it blend into the black of the background. Good enough. Now I think all I have left, some feathering on the body of the monster. Just your basic feathering right into the blacks. Then where there's no black, like right now, just thick it out to dagger strokes. Generally going in the same direction toward the light. It's just a little more aesthetically pleasing with its uniformity. Now what do I got left on the monster? A little bit on the leg here, coming forward. And I'm not doing perfect feathering there. I'm leaving it blunt on purpose because it's away from the main light. Again, that's another subject altogether, lighting. Do a little bit of work on the gums. Gonna blacken in a little bit towards the corners here. And now we have a little more of the hatching here, up by the explosion. Let's hope I have enough ink first. Make sure you have enough ink in your brush so that the brush doesn't dry out before you're done with your sets of lines. Otherwise, if you're gonna have a nice set of lines going and then the brush dries out in the middle of the set, you're gonna have to start all over where you left off and you're not sure if it's all going to match and look right. Just have enough to just knock it out without thinking about it. These ones are extra tricky where it's kind of a set of feathering that's circular, because you actually have to make the bottom part of each line extra fat so that it's wide enough to help encapsulate the circle pattern of the feathering. It's very hard to do detailed work when you're under the gun like I am right now. And the reason is because you don't really even want to do it. You just want to skip it so you can meet your deadline. But some areas just need to have that detail there, or else it will be an unsuccessful drawing. Plus, you don't want to piss off the penciler. Just when you think you're done with one panel, there's always one more set that you find out about. Right down here, this big explosion. You girls better get ready. Change into your bathing suits. Well, you're already in your bathing suits. Change into different ones because we're getting ready to go.
Of course, Tom.
Okay, now I gotta make this last feathering line kind of blend into that little blast coming out here, because it's kind of curvy right here. Oh, that's good enough. Alright, second panel. A lot of detail on the face now. Damn, that's what I need. I want to start with some of the wrinkling in his brow. I'm using the double-ended taper right now. So it's thickest in the middle, where the intersecting brow wrinkle is. I'm using the double-ended taper because the hatch marks he's using intersects the line and it distributes evenly on both sides of that line. So for that, I like to use a double-ended taper. Finish up on these fine wrinkles around the nose. Blend it into that little grimace line. Robble, robble. Is that what he says? Robble? I don't know, but whatever they say, it's all stupid. Moving down his face, we got some upper lip detail. There's a little bit of rendering out the corner of his mouth here, I see. I chose not to feather that directly into the blacks because the mouth doesn't gradually fade into the skin. There's a definite end to the mouth. There's two very fine curved hatching right up here, just like that. Very fine. Don't worry about thick thins at that point. It's just ridiculous to worry about it. A little bit of rendering coming off the little chest muscle separation here. Blend that right in, make it flowing into the black like it's nothing. Some feathering from the center of the chest. Looks like he's got it going in several different directions. Every now and then I'm checking the point of my brush because sometimes the hairs might split. In which case, if you see split hairs, what I'll do is I'll drag the brush and then I'll twist it while I drag it. And I'll kind of point the brush up. Some more hatching into the center of the chest here. Oh, that's too much ink. I gotta go back in and see if I can fix that up. One more different direction of hatching right here. Done with that part. A little bit of feathering from the neck tendon here. There we go. Okay, well, I'm gonna clean my brush again so then I can move on to the next step. Hey, what's up, Talia? I don't even have any soap. What are you even washing with? Just water? No answer? No good? All right. Was this like poverty bath? Some more feathering coming off the black at the bottom of the chest here. Let's fade that out. That looks like it's missing something. I'm going to throw a set of diagonal crosshatch over that. I don't know why, other than I feel it's a little too plain looking. And I need to make the gradation a little more effective. That's good enough. I need to complete this ellipse right here into the black. I had to match a couple different curves. I couldn't find an exact curve for that ellipse. So I matched along the pencil line as long as I could. And then I'm going to just freehand connect it with the brush to complete the ellipse. Try to make it seamless. Very seamless. Anything else? Oh yeah, I see a little set here on that little chest emblem thing. These are fine lines, so I'm making sure I'm running the extra ink out of my brush, testing it in the area that would be black. Throw a set of hatch marks here, this area that indicates a change in contrast, Just little fine double-ended tapers. Of course, it's kind of too fine to even see the taper, but going along the direction of the curve of the emblem itself. And I think we're good for panel 2. Now we move on to the final panel for any finishing touches, which I hope there is not too much of. Down to the wire here. A little bit of hatching off this forearm muscle, the brachioradialis. I'm going to throw in some more going up from the black here, just to kind of make it match with this part of the forearm a little bit. That's a little too white right there. There we go. Taking a final look, I'm going to add a little bit more darkness underneath the claws, just to indicate that it's close to the ground. That's enough. That's all I should do. Oops, I forgot to connect some of the lines here on this costume. I'll just do that with a brush. That'll look a lot cleaner after it's erased. A little bit more rendering along this blow-up kiddie pool here. Doug didn't draw it that way, but I'm actually making the lines blend right into this curve, just to make it all uniform and consistent. I'm going to do something about the underside of the duck's tail here. Kind of looks like it's floating up there, nothing underneath it, so I'm just going to fade it out. Almost looks like it's fading into the water itself. There is no contour for the water up here to separate from the pool, so I'm going to add it. There we go. See this ellipse right here of the pool, the inner ellipse, if you were to wrap it around and continue it all the way through behind that water, it would actually be shown over here. I could do one of two things. I could actually continue that line all the way through. Now, if you want, you could take a French curve or a guide to match that line and actually swipe it through with the tech pen. Or a faster and easier way would actually just to indicate some water on that side, disrupted water that would cover that contour like I just did. Nice simple little trick. I think we're done. I'm going to quickly erase this page. My trusty kneaded eraser. Hasn't been used all that much. It's still pretty light gray. If it's been abused, it'd be a very dark gray like you would see in these areas. I'm going to stretch it out here a little bit. So I'm going to erase the lead off of the page. Now I'm careful in the areas of fine line work or where I know there's a lot of brush work not to erase too hard, because sometimes your ink lines, believe it or not, will lighten up. And I know it's kind of contradictory to what you hear and read about, India ink being very permanent and you can't erase it. But you can actually. It can lighten up if you put too much pressure while you erase. In the big black areas where there's pencil lines, I'm not going to even waste my time or any of my good eraser on those big black areas that have pencil in it, because they're going to be covered anyway with ink. I erase before I go in to fill in the blacks, because in the event that any ink lines do get lightened up, I can just retouch them up as I'm filling in the blacks. But if you fill in your blacks first and then you erase last, you might find that you're still lightening up some ink areas. You might have to go back in anyway, touch it up. I'm especially careful in areas like really fine hatching and cross hatching, small faces when I'm erasing, places where I've taken care in applying the lines, because I don't want to go through that hassle of reapplying care again, especially if you're on a time crunch here. You'd be surprised at how clean the page looks after you erase it. The cleanliness of the lines are generally hidden with pencils, especially if the pencils are not razor tight. Not to mention, while you're inking, you kind of smudge around the pencils a bit, but you can really see how the feathering looks after you erase the graphite around it. Oftentimes when I erase an entire page, I'll discover areas, because the page is so messy with black ink and dark lead, I'll also discover places where I forgot to ink. And I already see a couple right now on the monster's left hand, and a couple lines in the building back here. So I'll have to do that really quickly before I fill in my blacks and rush off to deliver these pages. And every few moments I'm stretching out my eraser while I erase, because when I stretch it out, I'm actually finding a clean spot on the eraser that doesn't have too much lead on it already. If you erase on a spot that already has picked up a lot of lead, you really can't pick up that much more lead. You won't be able to erase that well. Yes, these are great forearm exercises too. Erasing will give your forearms and your grip quite a pump. It'll make your armpits very sweaty at times, especially under times of stress. The girls do not mind my smelly armpits when I'm under stress. They understand. Otherwise, they won't be hanging out here. Actually, I believe that they would hang out here whether I was smelly and dirty or not. Isn't that right, girls?
That's right, Tom.
Can't blame them. Some more stuff here. This is pretty much as clean as it's going to get. I don't know what those lines are in the back of the duck's head. I'm just gonna ignore it. Yes, that is the power of the anchor. Tracers, my ass. Pretty much done. Alright, looks good. I give it a couple of spots on the hand in the background to wrap up on. I'm just going to take a tech pen, my fine tech pen, and just fill those lines in really quick. But before I do that, I'm going to grab my handy big drafting brush here, dust off all the crumbs. Nothing I say now will help the viewers learn anymore. I've said all that needs to be said. Total extreme concentration and focus on getting this page done.